In this video, we're going to monetize our expertise using NotebookLM to create a client application. You will start the process by making sure that all of your messy notes are going to be uploaded as sources to a NotebookLM notebook. You will typically need a note-taking app where you will be dictating your thoughts and insights, and where you can take those thoughts and insights and very easily create a Google Doc with them. What you will then do is you will then add those sources. You will then click on your drive, and you will then add those sources to your notebook. You then need to use NotebookLM to synthesize this information into a master document. You're going to first start with a prompt that looks something like the one that we're typing in here. Because what we need to do is we need to create an extensive document that synthesizes all of the sources into a master document that tells the application how to behave. So to do that, we're going to start by creating a glossary. We'll then allow NotebookLM to create the glossary. It's a good idea when you are using the chat that you configure the chat. For this case, we want the chat to be exhaustive. So we're going to choose a longer length in response in creating this document. We're going to go ahead and save it. You'll then want to save the glossary to a note. Your glossary note will then be saved. The next prompt is going to ask for NotebookLM to take all of those messy notes and to develop a procedure manual or procedure format. Again, we need to tell the app how to behave, and so we need to have all of the processes outlined and outlined according to a synthesis of the sources. Now, this prompt is specific to the material that we have. You would need to adapt your prompt for the material that you have for your app. We're going to delete the chat history, and we're going to paste in the second prompt. We're now going to allow NotebookLM to undertake the second prompt. We're then going to save the second document to a note. What we are now going to do is we're going to delete the chat history. And what we now need to do is to design the logic of the application. Again, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to adapt this prompt to your own content and what you want your app to do. This logic is based on applying the theory of constraints. You want to design your logic to apply your intellectual property or your chosen framework. But you can adapt this prompt to what you want to do. We're going to paste in our prompt. We are then going to click enter, and we're going to design the logic for the application. We're now going to take this final document and we're going to save it to a note. We are then going to export each of these documents to a Google Doc. So we should now have all of our documents exported to our Google Docs. Now, there is an optional step that you can take. It's one that can be important depending on how you want to monetize your application. In this case, we renamed our documents to give them a numbering convention that'll be recognizable by the AI. In this case, 001, 002, 003. We then converted each one into a source. Once we knew that the documents were available as sources, we then went to the AI and we asked, are the documents with the numbering convention faithful to the sources? And we did get the answer that we wanted, that the documents are faithful to the sources. It's a validation check that you want to do before you use those documents inside of your application, because these documents now are going to represent the brain, your intellectual property, inside of the application. We can now go inside of Gemini and we can go to the Gems area. Once we're inside of the Gems area, we can then go to the Gem Manager and we can click on Create a New Gem. We will then be in the New Gem area. When you get to this step inside of the gem, you may be tempted to write in your instructions and then get the AI in order to rewrite them by using the Gemini element. However, we're not going to do that in this case. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the application is faithful to our documents and not necessarily friendly to the documents. So you can adapt this prompt that we're going to be using in this case. You'll adapt it to your situation and you'll adapt it to the framework that you're applying in your application. So that is the prompt that we will type into the instructions. We're going to use no default tool in this case. And what we're now going to do is we're going to add in our knowledge files. And we're going to add in the knowledge files here in this area from our Google Drive. And we have just created those documents. And now our documents are now uploaded. Our prompt is now in place. We can now click Save. And our guide is now created. You'll want to test the application. What you should see the application do is to apply the logic that you have set forth. And we can see that in this case, the prescription was done according to the synthesis of our documents. The logic then leads the individual to the conclusion according to the nature of our documents. You are going to get a dialog box when you get ready to share the application with an individual, or if you share with anyone that has the link. You're going to see that they're going to need access to the files that are available. You will click share. The individual, when they interact with your application, they're going to be able to get an answer. They will be able to click this button that says sources. However, when they click on this button, they will not be able to access the sources. They will see a thumbnail of the sources here in this area. They will not see the entire document, which is your intellectual property. The same thing is going to be true when the individual clicks on that element. They will see the document, but they will not have access to your entire document. So your proprietary application of the framework remains private, and the individual interacts here inside of the application. Now, to use your application, individual will need to have a cursory understanding of how to use Google Gemini, which you can give them through step-by-step documents. You can use a site like Tango.ai and their free plan to create click-by-click step documents. So what we have done is we have taken your application of a framework and we've turned it into intellectual property, and we've placed it inside of an application that you can give or sell to a client. Now, there are two other ways you want to test the app. You can go into the options area. We're then going to make a copy. When we make the copy, we're going to have an application. And one thing that we can do is we can use our knowledge base, but what we can also do is we can actually add in the actual notebook that the app refers to, and we can add that notebook to determine if the app provides a better answer. The less we ask the AI to do in terms of finding information, the better. And so in general, we don't want to add in the notebook. However, you can test adding in the documents and the notebook. Now, this will require that you rewrite your instructions here in this area. And in this case, if you're going to rewrite instructions, it is a good idea to allow Gemini to rewrite the instructions to account for the fact that you are including the actual notebook that the documents refer to. Logically, another way to test the application is we can make a copy. And what we can do is we can delete all of the documents and we can just attach the notebook. What we don't have now is we don't necessarily have instructions that dictate how the guide's going to interact. And so when you rewrite your instructions, you're going to need to rewrite your instructions to determine how you want the app to behave based on the notebook. Again, the best of all worlds is to use the master documents that we created in the first iteration of the application, but you'll want to test all three applications to determine which one will work best for your client. Okay, so thanks, and I will see you in another video.